हरे कृष्ण। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं ओमज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च श्रीकृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंश कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण वरिष्ठाय भूतले राधानाथ विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण वरिष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्पादमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. So we are at the conclusion of the month of Purushottam. So we are getting one more chance to discuss Harikatha together as this glorious month will disappear soon and come back again after another 3 years. So we are fortunate to be discussing at this time one of the most esoteric of all conversations. We discussed this briefly earlier, how the Chaitanya Charitamrita is not just a biography but also a theological work. Why? Because the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, specifically the philosophy espoused by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the highest revelation of the Vedas, of the scriptures, is clearly mentioned in this beautiful literature of Chaitanya Charitamrita through beautiful dialogues or conversations which Lord Chaitanya has had with various prominent personalities. We spoke about 5 prominent conversations. We spoke about conversations with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, conversations with Prakashanand Saraswati, conversations with Ramananda Raya, conversations with Rupa Goswami, and conversation with Sanatana Goswami. These 5 conversations summarize the glory of devotional service, the highest attainments in devotional service, the process of devotional service, and also how Bhakti is the supreme process, and bhakti is far beyond liberation. And how Mayavad conception of the Supreme Lord is actually such a dangerous obstacle to the attainment of one's real ultimate good fortune. So, amongst all these conversations, the conversation with Ramananda Raya is considered the most super excellent. And this is one of those conversations where Lord Chaitanya is listening and his devotee Ramananda Raya is speaking. In almost all other conversations, Lord Chaitanya is instructing. Here, Lord Chaitanya is listening. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is not listening in the sense that he's taking a lower position, but he's using Ramananda Raya as an instrument because specifically Ramananda Raya was recommended by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya as one as the greatest of devotees, especially he who is conversant with the Rasa Tattva, the Bhakti Rasa. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he interacts with him, they meet on the banks of the Godavari at Krishnanagar, and they both sit together the following day at a secluded place, and they're having this beautiful conversation. Ramananda Rai, understanding the position of Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, understanding himself to be a puppet in the hands of Krishna, who is Lord Chaitanya, becomes a willing instrument, fulfill the desire of the Lord by being an instrument to speak out the greatest of wisdom with respect to the Bhakti Tattva, Krishna Tattva, Radha Tattva, Rasa Tattva, for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and for the benefit of all living entities like us. So this conversation is indeed very, very special. In fact, this conversation is so exalted, so high. As I was reading through, revising to give the class, I was thinking, oh, I'm so unqualified even speaking this subject matter. So high, this is so exalted. But we will at least try to, we may not be able to fully taste and understand the subject matter. But at least if we are able to smell the fragrance of the sweetness of these topics, it will at least attract our hearts in the right direction. It is very important for us as a first step in our devotion to fix what is the goal. Sadhya and sadhana. Sadhya means what is your final goal? What is prayojan? What is it that is worthy of attaining? And then what is the sadhana to attain it? So the same is described in three terms in the Vedas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan. What is my relationship with the absolute truth of Krishna? What is the process of attaining it, and what is the highest attainment? So we are just about to begin. We are starting from verse 57 onwards. This chapter. It's a very long chapter, 300 plus verses. So we're not going to be able to complete the chapter today, but we will try to give you an overview of around another 70 odd verses, approximately. Krishna willing. And I will try to give you a summary because some of these conversations, there are so many quotes and so many finer points, it's practically impossible to cover them all in detail. And anyway, we are doing Pravaha. So I have a good excuse to not make you lost in the detailed presentation of these lofty topics. But I'll strongly encourage that you go through the verses and the purports at your own leisure. But the important point is we will try to cover this conversation how through this conversation Lord Chaitanya establishes from the mouth of Ramananda Rai what is the most highest sadhya. And that is the sadhya for us as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the conversation between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai begins with the question of Lord Chaitanya to Ramananda Rai. He said, please recite a verse from the scriptures, from the revealed scriptures, which speaks about the ultimate goal of life. What is sadhya? This is a very interesting conversation. So when asked like this, the first thing which Ramananda Rai answers, he quotes a verse from the Vishnu Puran, which begins with Varnashramacharvata. That verse essentially says that one can worship the Supreme Lord by properly following the system of Varna and Ashrama duties as is set by the Lord. The Lord is worshipped like that. So he quotes that to Lord Chaitanya for consideration. So this is the question. So he makes the first proposition. So Lord Chaitanya listens to this particular proposition. What is the proposition? The proposition essentially is that if a living being follows the Varnashrama system properly as given by the Lord, because the system is given by the Lord, then he will progress spiritually. As soon as he says this, Lord Chaitanya says, this is external. Lord Chaitanya rejects this. He doesn't say this is wrong. He says this is external. Why external? Because Lord Chaitanya is asking what's the ultimate goal. Because Ramananda Rai is starting at the most basic level first. And what is the most basic level? The most basic level is, Are Baba, at least lead a dharmic life according to the rules and regulations given by the Lord. But even though Lord Chaitanya doesn't spell out the details, Prabhupada explains that essentially what Lord Chaitanya is trying to tell Ramananda Rai is that if a person simply follows the rules and regulations of scriptures, the Varnashrama rules, yes, it is auspicious because he is following the rules as given by the Supreme Lord, and acting according to one's tendency is good. But just by performing good karma of performing Varnashram duties, how can one transcend material existence? One will only gather punya. Yes, one will gradually progress to higher statuses of life by following one's duties properly, but this by itself doesn't constitute spiritual life. So, eho bahaya. This is external. Tell me something more, Lord Chaitanya asked. So Ramananda Rai says, okay, my Lord, you're not happy with this statement as the ultimate perfection that man should follow his duties. Like some people say, right? Work is worship. Of course, not any kind of work is worship, but what Ramananda Rai is saying here is work according to the Varnashram system is a way to please the Supreme Lord. And yes, at one level, yes. But that is not the essence of spiritual life. So Lord Chaitanya, when he says like that, Ramananda Raya says, okay, my Lord. How about this? Krishna says in 9th chapter 27 verse, Yat karoshi yat ashnashi yat juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. You are not happy about simply performing varnashram duties. But Krishna says, whatever varnashram duties you perform, offer the results to me. Krishna karmarpanam, offering the fruits of the activities to Krishna. How about this as the sadhya? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is still not impressed. He says karmarpanam is also external. Prabhupada says, why Lord Chaitanya says like that? Because although at this stage, when actually at least recognizes Krishna and doesn't just perform his prescribed duties, but recognizes Krishna and offers it to him, one is still attached to performing material activities. And if one is still attached to material activities, one may make some progress spiritually by offering to the Lord, but that isn't quite the highest position. Eo Bahaya. This is also external. Go in, go deeper. Tell me. Okay, my Lord. Then he quotes one more verse. Sarva dharma tyaga. Oh Lord, it is better to give up all material duties. Lord Chaitanya says, oh, this is also external. Because without spiritual knowledge, proper spiritual knowledge about what is the real goal of life, simply detachment from material things by giving up materialistic duties is also not a desirable thing. This is the other side of attachment. There is a attachment and there is renunciation. Some people are extremely attached to matter, some try to renounce matter altogether. But they don't know what actually to take shelter of, ultimately. So this is also external. Then Ramananda Raya says, oh my Lord, Krishna says in the 18th chapter, 54th verse of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate para. That when a person through knowledge, cultivation gradually comes to the platform of Brahman realization over many lifetimes, then he becomes eligible to attain pure devotional service to you. So essentially, he speaks about Jnana Mishra Bhakti, where Bhakti is mixed with Jnana. When we speak about Jnana here, we are talking about speculative knowledge. Speculative knowledge means essentially the use of intelligence through speculation as a means to understand the ultimate goal of life. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not particularly pleased with this either. This is also external. Karma is external as a means. Jnana is also external because Jnana also doesn't touch the essence of the soul. You are hinting towards Bhakti, Ramananda Raya. He doesn't say it, but Prabhupada explains. You are hinting towards Bhakti, but why are you mixing Jnana with Bhakti, speculative knowledge with Bhakti? You aren't speaking about pure Bhakti yet. That is what Lord Chaitanya is saying. Getting the hint indirectly that Lord Chaitanya is suggesting by labeling Jnana Mishra Bhakti as external, Eho Bhaya. Ramananda Rai further submits to Lord Chaitanya Another very beautiful verse from the Srimad Bhagavad 10:14:3. Very beautiful verse, and I'm going to read this. And this verse is essentially talking about Jnana Shunya Bhakti, means that bhakti which is not mixed with speculative knowledge, which essentially means it is pure bhakti. So he started first with just karma, then Nishkama Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga, then Jnana Mishra Bhakti, and now he's talking about Jnana Shunya Bhakti. The verse goes like this: Lord Brahma is explaining the glory of pure devotion over devotion which is mixed with jnana. Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti shanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam sthane sthita shrutigatam tanuvam manobhir ye prayaso jito ajita jitopi asitrai trilokyam. Translation is: those who abandon empirical philosophical speculations and instead they hear from self-realized devotees about the Lord and surrender unto Him with body, minds, and words. Doesn't matter which ashram or social status they are living in. Doesn't matter whether they are brahmachari, grasta, vanaprastha, brahman, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra. Such people who, having given up speculative knowledge, are simply absorbed in hearing from pure devotees and taking shelter of the Lord, they can conquer the unconquerable Lord. What does this verse mean? Ramananda Raya is indicating to Lord Chaitanya that the unconquerable Lord, Ajita, what is the meaning of Ajita? He who cannot be conquered. Ajita Jitopi, that the Ajita becomes Jita. The unconquerable becomes conquered. Wow. Because of pure devotion. So the Lord is unconquerable by any other means. The Lord cannot be conquered by performance of karma, tapa, jnana, swadhyaya. And this is mentioned many times in the Vedic literatures again and again and again and again. Either through fruitive activity, nor through renunciation, nor through austerities, nor through study can one attain the Lord, but through pure devotional service. The unconquerable Lord becomes conquered with simple, pure-hearted devotion. And the beginning of that simple, pure-hearted devotion is the very simple process of sitting in front of the self-realized spiritual master and hearing the message of the Lord with faith. And a person who is willing to do this, he can be a simple housewife, he can be a student, he can be a IT professional, he can be from any status of life, it doesn't matter. With faith, those who are willing to hear the message of Vasudeva, through this simple process of hearing about Vasudeva with faith, the Lord eventually becomes conquered. Such a powerful process. When we become interested in hearing about the Lord without any desire for material benefit, without any desire for liberation, but just out of love and affection and being attracted to the Lord becomes attracted to us. It attracts the Lord's attention. Here is someone who's interested in me. Because all the others who are either karmis or jnanis, they are approaching the Lord because they want something in return. Material or even liberation. But the bhaktas are attracted to the Lord and they find pleasure in simply hearing about the glories of the Lord. When somebody becomes eager to hear about the Lord becomes very interested in it. So when Lord Chaitanya heard this particular verse, the Jnane Prayasam verse, which is pure devotional service without any mixture of karma or jnana, Lord Chaitanya said, Eho haya. Yes, this is correct. Until now, the Lord was saying, this is external, this is external. Why external? External because anything which is dealing with karma or jnana or as a mixture of karma and jnana is not of the intrinsic spiritual nature of the soul. It is external to one's real self. Jiver Swarup Hoye Krishner Nityadas Krishnasya Tatastha Shakti Bedha Veda Prakash. That the real nature of the soul is to be an eternal servant of Krishna, being eternally attracted to Krishna. The attraction manifests itself initially with a eagerness to hear about Krishna. That is why if you want to judge our own advancement in Krishna consciousness, we just have to see how eager we are to hear about Krishna. When somebody is speaking about Krishna, are we very eager to hear? Of course, at least I can see all of you here. Even though I am so unqualified and I'm not able to speak so nicely about the glories of the Lord, you are also eager to hear that you are coming Tuesdays and Saturdays. So definitely the Lord will be very pleased. But beyond this also, whenever we get an opportunity to hear, when we hear something being spoken about the Lord, are we getting immediately attracted? So this is how we can gauge for ourselves how much spiritual advancement we are making. So this, Prabhupada says, is the basic principle of perfection. What is the basic principle of perfection? Pure attraction to the Lord, pure devotion unmixed with karma and jnana. This is of the platform of perfection. From here, one can make further progress. So this is not the end. This is the beginning of perfection. That's why what Lord Chaitanya has come to give is very, very high. What many people claim to be the final perfection, Lord Chaitanya has already rejected as external. External. So he continues, Ramananda Raya. Lord Chaitanya, even though he says that this is good, he is not yet satisfied. He is encouraging Ramananda Raya. Carry on. Tell me more. So Ramananda Raya, being conversant in deeper and deeper truths of higher and higher attainments within devotional service, he says that yes, Jnana Shunya Bhakti is good, but devotional service, which is performed in a regulative way to make advancement and to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such devotional service is perfect. Essentially, what he's saying, that loving devotional service followed according to regulative principles, Vaidhi Bhakti, Prema Bhakti, but Vaidhi Bhakti, according to regulative principles, is perfect. Lord Chaitanya says, Eho hai. Yeah, this is also okay. Devotional service followed very strictly, which means chant 16 rounds no matter what, follow the 4 regulative principles, read every day, offer obeisances, do arati, worship, whatever regulative principles we follow. With faith, with love, not simply a ritualistic way. Here we are talking about prema bhakti. Pure love but rendered in a regulative way, in a formal way, in a disciplined way. So Lord Chaitanya still accepts, oh, hey, he says. But he's not fully satisfied. And Prabhupada says, why he's not satisfied? Because while pure bhakti is nice to be executed with regulative principles, but the reality is pure bhakti should be executed in terms of regulative principles only until the point that one does not have spontaneous attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The moment one has spontaneous attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which means one graduates from the Vaidhi Bhakti platform and graduates into the Raga Marga of Raganuga Bhakti, where one has spontaneous attraction for the Lord, then one doesn't have to forcefully follow the regulative principles because one is naturally and spontaneously attracted to the Lord. One doesn't have to say, oh, I have to chant my 16 rounds. Where are my beats? One is continuously attracted and chanting and singing the glories of the Lord because of a spontaneous attraction. Yes? So Ramananda, understanding Lord Chaitanya's heart, he speaks another beautiful verse from the Padyavali, verse number 14. This is a very, very famous verse which is also quoted as the definition of Krishna consciousness. So he says this very beautiful verse. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita matihi. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam janma koti sukrutir api na labhyate. Very beautiful verse. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati. And that consciousness which is imbued with Krishna bhakti rasa. Prabhupada explains this phrase, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati, as the definition of Krishna consciousness. The word Krishna consciousness derives from this phrase, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati. What does this shloka actually say? That wherever one can purchase Krishna consciousness, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati, that consciousness which is affected with bhakti rasa or imbued with bhakti rasa, wherever one can get it, one should buy it at whatever price. Don't think, just buy if you can get it. Why? Because actually this is a very, very, very rare commodity. That consciousness which is spontaneously attracted to Krishna is a very, very rare commodity. Because this commodity cannot be purchased even by performing pious activities for crores of lives. Janma koti sukrutir apina labhyate. If you think you will go on performing varnashram duties for 1 million lifetimes, still you will not attain spontaneous attraction to Krishna. Cannot be purchased with that. No amount of austerity, studies, meditation, dan, dharma can help you attain that. So what is the price? How do I purchase? You told me you have to purchase somehow at any price, but you're not telling me the price. Tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam. There's only one price for it. Tatra laulyam. The intense eagerness to have it is the price for it. Very interesting. There's no other price for it. When you eagerly, intensely want Krishna consciousness, that itself is the price of Krishna consciousness. So that is how one gradually graduates from Vaidhi Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti. That when one is continuously hearing Harikatha from advanced devotees, one's hankering for having that state of consciousness, like the advanced devotees of Vrindavan, who are spontaneously attracted to Krishna, we become attracted to that kind of consciousness, and we become start to hankering for that kind of devotion. And through that hankering, when one continuously associates with these kind of ragatmika bhaktas, Krishna will one day bless one. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati. May you become Krishna conscious. Then one develops this kind of a irresistible attraction towards the Supreme. Those who have attained this kind of a natural attraction for the Lord are very, very, very fortunate. Very fortunate. Because this is a very, 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 very rare attainment. Even in Vaikuntha, this kind of bhakti is not there. Even in Vaikuntha, we are not even talking about material world. Spontaneous attraction for Krishna is not available even in Vaikuntha. Even in Vaikuntha, there is prema bhakti, but Vaidhi bhakti. Regulative, ritualistic devotion. So Lord Chaitanya is very happy that Ramananda Raya has spoken about prema bhakti of the raga marga type. But the Lord still wants him to go further. Prabhupada says why? He says, because even though there is prema and even though there is spontaneous prema, the spontaneous prema will not progress unless there is a relationship of intimacy between the Lord and his devotee. If one's devotion is of spontaneity, but one's devotion isn't coming to the point of developing an intimate relationship, an intimate personal relationship with the Lord, then the love is not considered fixed. So Prabhupada explains. Then Lord Chaitanya goes further. Sorry, Ramananda Rai goes further. Now he explains about one level higher than pure devotion in spontaneity. He says, amongst the pure devotion in spontaneity, which is of dasya bhava, the attitude of servitude towards the Supreme Lord, is perfect, is wonderful. That kind of spontaneous devotional service, where the devotee is the servant and the Lord is the master. And he quotes certain verses. I'm not going to go into those verses. He quotes certain verses. He quotes from the Srimad Bhagavad from 9.5.16 and from Stotra Ratna. He quotes certain verses which glorify Dasya Prema. And Lord Chaitanya is happy, says, oh, hey, this is also good. Dasya Prema I accept. Prabhupada says, even though Lord Chaitanya accepts, again, he is not yet fully satisfied. Why? It is wonderful to have a servitude relationship with the Lord. But even in a servitude relationship, the servant is afraid of the master. Afraid in the sense there is a feeling that of inferiority. And because of that feeling of inferiority and a very respectful, reverential attitude, there is not that much intimacy in the relationship. And that's why that relationship is not as developed and sweet as a relationship can be. So he gently prods Ramananda Rai to go further deeper. So Ramananda Rai then gives the next level after Dasya Prem. He gives the example of Sakhya Prem, loving service to Krishna rendered in the mood of fraternity. Fraternity means in the sense of equals. And he quotes a very beautiful verse from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad, chapter 12, verse 11. That the fortune of the Vraja Gopas, the Gopas of Vrindavan, her spontaneous Raga Bhakti for Krishna in the mood of friends. Itham satam brahma sukhanubhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena maya shritanam naradarakena sardham vijarru tritapunya punjaha. The glories of the Gopas are being described. The translation is, neither those engaged in the self-realization of appreciating the Lord's Brahman effulgence, nor the servants who accept him as their master, nor those under Maya thinking of him as ordinary, can understand the good fortune of the Gopas of Braj who are playing with Krishna, because they have accumulated such unimaginable transcendental credits, which means this position is higher than the materialist, higher than the liberated souls, higher than even the servants of the Lord, essentially. Which is exactly what Lord Chaitanya had asked him, go higher than the servitude. This is the Sakhya Prema. Why Sakhya Prema is higher? Because there is more intimacy than Dasya Prema. Why there is more intimacy? Because the element of fear is not there. Correct? When you are in front of your boss, there's an element of reverence, there's a sense of fear. But when you are with an equal, with a friend, there is more intimacy, there is more free interaction between the two individuals. So there is more affection. So Lord Chaitanya is happy. So he says, when Sakhya Prem is said, Lord Chaitanya is happy, because Sakhya Prem is a significant attainment. So he doesn't say this is good. He says, Eho Uttama. This is A class. This is very good. Go on, go on. Tell more. Now you are making things more interesting. You have come to Braj Bhakti in Sakhya Prem. So then he goes to the next higher level, which is Vatsalya Prema. And then he quotes certain verses from the scriptures and he explains that higher than the Sakhya Prem is that love which is imbued with parental affection for the Lord. Vatsalya Ras, like Nanda Yashoda. That kind of love is higher than the Sakhya Rasa. And Lord Chaitanya is very happy. He says, Eho Uttama, this is wonderful, this is great. But this love is so much more intimate than Sakhya. This parental affection is also so intimate. But still, there is not complete freedom. Still there is an inhibition, because still it is a parent and child relationship. Even though in this case the child is the Lord, not the other way around. But still, there are certain ways in which a parent cannot express their love with a child. Then Ramananda Rai goes to the pinnacle. So, my Lord, the actual topmost perfection, where full expression of love without any inhibition and with full intimacy, which can be rendered out of spontaneous love for the Lord, is Madhurya Ras. It is Kanta Prema. Kanta Prema means the feeling of love which a beloved has, especially the female consort has towards her husband or lover. Kanta Prema. So he starts describing this kind of love between Krishna, and especially that between Krishna and the gopis of Vraja. And Lord Chaitanya is so happy. When he starts hearing about this topic, as Ramananda Raya starts describing this topic of the love between gopis and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya says, Ei sadhyavadhi. This is the limit of perfection. So Lord Chaitanya himself accepts this is topmost. So far, the Lord initially was saying this is external. Then he said this is good. Then he said this is very good. Now he's saying this is the limit of perfection. Because love of Godhead in Madhurya Ras, especially when it is spontaneous love, the devotees of Vraja have for Krishna in Madhurya Ras, it lacks nothing. It is fully complete. It is intimate to the ultimate extent. There is no inhibition. There is no way in which Krishna cannot be served in a Madhurya relationship. And then to please Lord Chaitanya, Ramananda Raya continues to give further description of this Kanta Prema. He explains to Lord Chaitanya that this is Sarva Sadhya Sar. This is the essence. Conjugal attraction for Krishna or attachment for Krishna is the topmost position in love of Godhead. And he quotes a beautiful verse. How is it topmost? Because that kind of good fortune where Krishna put his arms around the necks of the gopis as he was performing the rasa dance. This kind of good fortune, the Bhagavatam says, even Lakshmi Devi did not attain. Lakshmi Devi is sitting at the lotus feet of the Lord, and once in a while she'll sit on his lap. But you will not see Krishna and Lakshmi dancing where, Krishna is putting hands around Lakshmi's neck. Lakshmi Devi became so eager. It's not mentioned here, but Lakshmi Devi at one time became very eager, participate in the Ras dance. She said, what is this? You don't do this with me also. Huh? Correct? Like a wife will complain, oh, you are dancing with that girl. The way you dance with your girlfriend, you're not dancing with me. I am your wife. Why you're not dancing like that? So I also want to come to your party with your girlfriends. Krishna says, no, no, no. That is not for you. So Lakshmi Devi was not allowed. So the consort, the eternal consort of the Lord was not allowed. Or she was not granted that kind of love which the gopis had attained. So this is the kind of exalted nature of the love of the gopis. So anyway, a lot of points are mentioned here. I'm not going to go through all, but Ramananda Raya here explains. He says that he explains in such a way that a devotee may, in his eternal relationship with Krishna, have any one of these five rasas: Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. And for that individual devotee, whatever relationship he has with Krishna, that is perfect. So sometimes when a person may wonder, oh, I just happen to be a friend of Krishna. I'm not a gopi in Vrindavan. So a gopa of Vrindavan doesn't think like that. Each person, whatever our eternal position or our eternal relationship with Krishna is we are always eternally and fully satisfied in that position. So one should not be thinking that, I would have, what if I am a monkey in Vrindavan? Then I'll be so sad. Oh, I'm not a gopi. Oh, I'm not a gopa. A living entity doesn't feel like that because whatever is our constitutional position, when we attain it, we are fully satisfied. So from our perspective, it is perfect. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is explaining that even though each of these positions are perfect for the individual living entity himself, still, if we consider from a neutral perspective on the scale of intimacy and on the scale of taste or the sweetness of the experience of that rasa, then conjugal is the highest. Shanta, then dasya, then sakhya, then vatsalya, then madhurya. And as these rasas progress, the subsequent rasas, the subsequent higher relationship is more intimate, more sweeter, and it already includes all the elements of the previous relationships. Which means a dasya relationship includes the experience of Shanta plus more in dasya. In Sakhya, the experience of Shanta and dasya taste is already included, plus there is more. Vatsalya includes the previous plus more. And Madhurya is most complete because it has a complete experience of all the five rasas, plus a unique taste of Madhurya and intimacy, which is not realized by the previous four relationships. And the example is given is, just like one progresses from more subtler elements into more grosser elements, and the grosser elements have all the characteristics of the previous subtler elements and new. Similarly, prema in these various categories progresses like that. Just like material elements from sky to air to fire, water. In that progression, the subsequent elements have all the properties of the previous one and more newer, similarly. And why is this Madhurya prema so great? Because complete attainment of Krishna's lotus feet is possible only by this kind of love. Because this kind of love captivates Krishna. Krishna is happy with all other types of devotion, but he becomes madly overcome with love, which is of the nature of this kind of spontaneous attraction to him in a conjugal. And then Krishna and then Ramananda Raya gives examples from the Bhagavatam to prove this point. There's a beautiful verse from the Bhagavatam 10:82-44. Mai bhaktir hi bhutanam amratatvaya kalpate dishtya yad asina mat sneho bhatinam mad apanah. That if you want to attain my favor, if anybody wants to attain my favor, the means to attain my favor is pure devotional service to me. And oh gopis, you are all engaged in my pure devotional service. Those who serve me with pure devotional service, they become eligible to go to the spiritual world and attain an eternal knowledge, eternal life of knowledge and bliss. Another verse which Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains is from the Bhagavad Gita 4.11. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam saiva bhajamyaham mama vartman vartate manusya artha sarvasya. That Krishna promises the way one approaches Krishna, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. If you approach Krishna with limited intimacy, Krishna will respond with limited intimacy. If you approach Krishna with unfettered love and a full open heart of spontaneous love, Krishna also reciprocates. In fact, Krishna feels so indebted to the love of the gopis. The Bhagavatam, Krishna says, Krishna actually expresses his inability to pay back the gopis for their love. न पारये अहम निर्वद्य संयुजाम सत्साधु कृत्यम विभूद्य विभूध युषापि वह या मां भजन दुर्जय गेह श्रृंखलाः संवृच्य तद वह प्रतियातु साधुना. In many lives, it will be impossible for me to repay my debt to you because you have cut off the bondage of family life just to search for me. Krishna is telling this to the gopis. Therefore, please be satisfied with your honest activities in this regard. Essentially, Krishna is telling the gopis because the gopis abandoned their home and took all kind of risk in the middle of the night. They came in front of Krishna. When Krishna played the flute and invited them to participate in the Rasa dance, Krishna was so pleased by that spontaneous love, that attitude of taking risk. That Krishna says, I cannot repay. Even if I come and take many, many lives, I cannot repay your debt. Imagine Krishna is saying, Krishna was the owner of all opulences. Krishna, who can give anything and everything to a devotee, he still feels that I cannot repay the gopis for the love that the gopis have. So these are all proofs that Ramananda Raya is giving to indicate the super excellence of this kind of love. That Krishna feels indebted, because Krishna has not made these kind of statements about any other categories of devotees. And another thing about this kind of Madhurya Prema for Krishna is that in the presence of Madhurya devotion, like the devotion of the gopis, Krishna's sweetness and Krishna's beauty increases in the presence of these kind of devotees. Although Krishna's beauty is anyway unparalleled and unlimited, when Krishna interacts with the gopis, Yadyapi Krishna Saundarya Madhuryera Dhurya Rajadevira Sangetanra Badaya Madhurya. Even though Krishna is already topmost super excellent beauty, but in the presence of the gopis, his beauty, his Madhurya becomes even more sweet. When Lord Chaitanya hears all this, he's so happy. He says, this is the limit of perfection. This is the limit of perfection. What you have described. But please be merciful to me. I'm so happy about what you're speaking. If there is anything more, please speak. So Ramananda Raya is so astonished. I have gone so deep, so high. This personality is telling me, go more deep. Who will tell? Ramananda Raya says, until this day, I did not know anyone in this world can inquire higher than this, what I have spoken. Because already this is considered the absolute pinnacle. Who can say that, tell me something higher? But since you have asked, I will tell. So then he goes into the jewel of the jewels within Madhurya Prema. And that we will discuss in our next class. Okay. So we have come up to verse 98, this particular chapter. So the subsequent topic, which actually Ramananda Raya will speak about, is going to be about the love of Srimati Radharani. Because amongst the Madhurya Rasa, amongst the gopis, Radharani's love is super excellent. So then he goes into that topic of Radharani's love. And then he goes into more deeper topics about the glories of Radharani's love. What is the tattva of Krishna? What is the tattva of Radharani? What is the Rasa Tattva, what is Radha Sarup, what is the glory of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and what is the sadhana to attain this kind of love. These are super excellent topics, which are the sacred treasure, the legacy that our parampara is handing over to all of us, and making this kind of a love available to each one of us if we properly take shelter of the process of Krishna consciousness. So this is very wonderful. So I will just quickly summarize in just 1 or 2 minutes what we have discussed for today. So as Lord Chaitanya is asking Ramananda Raya about what is sadhya, what is the ultimate goal of life, gradually Ramananda Raya goes deeper and deeper. He starts with Varnashram Dharma, then talks about Karmarpanam to Krishna. Then he speaks about Sarva Dharman Parityaja, giving up all varieties of religion, which is Sarva Dharma Tyaga. Then he goes to Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Then he comes to pure devotion, Jnana Shunya Bhakti. From there he comes to Vaidhi Prema Bhakti. From Vaidhi Prema Bhakti he goes to Vaidhi Raga Bhakti, spontaneous, loving devotional service to the Lord. Within the realm of spontaneous, loving devotional service, then he goes into the various higher rasas, Dasya Prema, and Sakhya Prema, Vatsalya Prema, then Madhurya Prema. And in the Madhurya Prema concludes as the love of the gopis, the Kanta Prema of the love of the gopis, most super excellent. And then within Kanta Prema is the topic, the most excellent of the Kanta Prema is the love of Radharani. That will be the topic for our next class. So these are all very high things. Actually, what is going to be spoken beyond this is even more difficult for me to speak, but we'll see what we can do as a simple overview for our own purification. And our prayers to Radha, Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, our previous acharyas, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, that they give us the necessary strength to be able to speak something sensible as a service to them and as a service to all the beings. Thank you very much. Chaitanya Charitamrita ki. Any questions or comments before we can? So, by the way, happy Indian Independence Day also. It's 15th August. So, sometimes some people may wonder, why we are getting excited about Independence Day. So yes, I mean, from a generic sense, country and Independence Day and all these things are certainly material concepts. But we are not excited simply for a mundane country. We are excited for that piece, that small part of Bharat Khanda, of Bharatvarsha, which still represents the culture that Bharatvarsha is supposed to represent. Within Bharatvarsha, there is Bharata Khanda, there is earth. Within Bharata Khanda, there is now Bharata Bhumi, which is India. Because that is the remnants of the culture of the Sanatan tradition, the tradition of the Gita and the Bhagavad. So we are not just patriotic for a piece of land. We are excited about the civilization, culture, philosophy, and the wisdom that this land has carried and propagated all through. So even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is excited. Whoever is born in this land of Bharatbhumi, it is a sacred duty to learn the science of Krishna consciousness and preach it to the world. So we want India to become prosperous, materially, spiritually prominent, not just from the perspective of becoming great, like, every country wants itself to be great and become nationalistic. As devotees, that is not our thought process. Our thought process is that the hope of the world depends on how successful India is in reviving its true culture and religion. If India rises back again the way it was in older generation, in centuries ago, and achieves that kind of prominence, the culture and the philosophy that it represents, India will become a Vishwaguru, and that culture and philosophy will be appreciated and adopted across the whole world, leading in the transformation of mankind and in fulfillment of the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prithivete yacheyayata nagaradigram sarvattar prachar hoy bomar. So we are excited for that prospect. And it is with that desire that Krishna consciousness and all good fortune for all living entities spreads all over the planet, maybe even beyond. That is the reason we want to place our hope in the land of Bharat. We don't even want to call it India, we prefer to call it Bharat. Bharat, the land of Bharat Maharaj, the culture he represents, his teachings. And Bharat also stands for Bha, means effulgence, and Rat means engaged. Those who are engaged in the life of divine cultivation. That is the essence of Bharat. So in that sense, happy Independence Day. And Prabhupada would often say that real independence means to be completely dependent on Krishna. So we are not talking about independence in the same sense as what a Western person may think. Individualistic, selfish independence. No. This is our recognition that we are all part and parcels of the Lord, and our and everybody's supreme good fortune is to take complete shelter of the Lord in love and serve Him and all living entities in a way that everyone will find the most complete fulfillment of their heart's innermost desires by blooming their consciousness fully by becoming Krishna conscious. Okay, so thank you very much. Since there are no questions, we'll conclude. So I'll see you all on Saturday. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Shri Purushottama Masa ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Samavita Gaura Bhakti, Ramananda Raya ki jai. Thank you. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare